Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Thanks for joining me for this Lunch and Learn webinar. This is Todd Christensen. I'm the Education Manager at MoneyFit by DRS. And today's topic, we're gonna jump into it here pretty quick. Who wants to live like a millionaire? We're going to talk about what that means, why I even address this topic. First of all, let me say I don't believe everybody should have as a goal or a purpose in life to become a millionaire. It's not an end that matters. It's living like a millionaire. We're going to maybe bust some myths, reestablish or reconfirm some truths. And at the end, by the end of this presentation, I'll give you a passcode. You can use that and go to a link I'll share to get a certificate of completion. And if you would like to do this full course, it is available through our website at moneyfit.org/courses. You'll find it there, and you can share it and have family or friends take it as well. So very briefly, let's go ahead and get started here. Millionaires. What are the different pathways to millionaires? Now I'm going to ask these questions based upon conversations, or address these questions based upon conversations and discussions in many of the high school, middle school, college classrooms that I attend, and discussions that I have with not just young people, but the general consumer. How do you become a millionaire? Many people will look at this question and say, well, if I'm ever going to be a millionaire, I guess I'll have to win the lottery, or I'll have to marry somebody who's rich, or I'll have to just get really lucky or inherit the money. We're gonna address that. If that is the way most millionaires become millionaires. Well, we'll have to define what millionaires are as well. But there are a wide variety of ways that millionaires actually become a millionaire. So, asking this question, who are America's billionaires? I used to ask just who are America's millionaires, and I would get a list of the top billionaires. People like you've got Bill and Melinda Gates, you've got Warren Buffett, you've got Jeff Bezos, and over the last few years, Donald Trump has also started to show up in those classroom discussions. Those are the billionaires. Those are the richest. Certainly, Gates, Buffett, and Bezos are the richest in America and the world. But what about most millionaires? Who are the millionaires? And so I'll ask classes, where do they come? When you think of a millionaire, what type of profession comes to mind? And inevitably these three professions come up. 1, actor, 2, athlete, and 3, musician. This is particularly talking to groups of young people who have not decided yet how they're going to spend their professional career, earning money, and what kind of lifestyle they want. But they think of wealthy, they think, well, if I'm going to be wealthy, I'm going to have to be an athlete, an actor, or a musician. Sometimes they'll just add celebrity there as well. So let's talk about what is the pathway to becoming a millionaire? Which are the common professions and types of jobs? So let's take those athletes, actors, and musicians and put them on a pie chart. You see that circle is very faint. But if you were to put them on the pie chart, first of all, there are 12, as of now, there are 12 million millionaires in this country. 12 million people who have net worths of $1 million or more. That's a lot. That's a lot more than most people believe or think about. So who are they? Well, you've got because the athletes, actors, and musicians are going to make up less than 1%, 1.1%. Even if all of the NFL, NHL, NBA, Major League Baseball, and soccer players in America if they were all millionaires, and they are not, they still wouldn't register on this pie chart. So who are the millionaires? Well, let's break them down into groups. This group here, about roughly 6%, 16%. These are the heads of major organizations, executives, business leaders. These are not small business owners. We'll get to them in a moment. But this is one of the smallest. This is one of the smallest pieces of the millionaire pie. CEOs. They will make the news quite often. They come to mind for a lot of people when they hear about millionaires. Oh, must be the head of a major corporation, and that can be true. That is a large percentage, but not the majority. What you'll find is and these are all rough figures. You'll find that about 20%, 1 in 5 millionaires, are professionals. By professionals, we're talking about attorneys, accountants, medical, healthcare professionals, physicians, dentists, so forth. About 1 in 5 millionaires come from the professions, and they work for someone else. By someone else, I mean they might work for a law firm, or they might work for a hospital or a medical center. They don't own their own business or practice. 1 in 5. Pretty big chunk of millionaires. This group also comes to mind for a lot of people after they think about the musicians and the athletes and the actors. Then you have the other set of professionals who do own their own business or their own practice or their own firm. You will have the physicians and the surgeons and the accountants and so forth. So essentially, about 4 out of 10 millionaires are professionals. I think there's a reason why a lot of parents love to push their kids toward those professions, because as a group, they do earn quite a bit of money. Now, earning is only part of the equation. We'll see in a few minutes. But the higher the income, the more likely or the easier it is to build wealth of $1 million or more. These millionaires are not quite as conspicuous as the musicians and the athletes and the actors. After all, if you're an actor, it's your job to be noticed. If you don't stand out from the crowd, you're not going to get another job. As an actor, you're not going to get the best jobs. If you're a musician and nobody knows who you are, you're not have a brand. Yeah, you might have great music, and there are some fantastic musicians out there that will never make a career out of it. You've got to stand out. Even athletes. The big money is not just in their contracts, it's in the endorsements, of course, and the better you are known and the more quickly you are recognized by the public, the better the endorsements deals you're going to get. So it's their job to stand out. That's why it's very common to see them in the fancy cars and wearing the fancy clothes and attending the well-publicized events and parties and so forth, because that's part of how they continue their career. Physicians and attorneys and accountants and dentists and so forth, they may not be in it for the fame, and the fame may not, but can sometimes, in some cases, help them in their business. But quite often, it is a profession that of choice for those who want to have a comfortable income. And so you will see a lot more of these millionaires in lifestyles that, again, are somewhat conspicuous, somewhat apparent, that you would say, oh, that person is quite well off financially. But let's talk about the rest. So we're somewhere in the neighborhood, let's just over 50% here. There's about another 20% that are small business owners, and this, by small business, I mean any kind of business that has up to about 100 employees or less. Most, though, are going to be very small, in the five employees or less even sometimes. But it can be any sort of business, from a landscaping or construction to private education and consulting and even auto repair. But then you also get the small business that are in high tech. Maybe they're creating their own an app or a software, or small manufacturing. But it can be really any small business. Business ownership, as you see, not just those 20%, but add that to the 20% of professionals who own their own business. Business ownership is the most common career among millionaires in this country. And then the remainder, the 24%, is just a miscellaneous mix of all sorts of professions and jobs, from the in the schools, the librarians and the teachers and the administrators and the professors and researchers, to the supervisors and the customer service representatives. And you can have people among the millionaires who have really good income, but you also find many who just live a very modest lifestyle and are able to build over their lifetime a net worth of $1 million or more. And that's what we're going to talk about here, is what is a millionaire. Well, let's see. Have you got what it takes? So let's just define it right now. Defining a millionaire is a wealth or a net worth of $1 million, meaning everything, all the assets you own, any cash in the bank, any ownership of securities and stocks, bonds, and other investments, real estate investments, all those assets, minus any liabilities, any debts that you owe. And not count, you can't count your home. I like the definition. It does not include your home, because if your home is worth $1 million, that doesn't make you a millionaire, because it's not like you can just sell a home and have $1 million and live on the street. It's typically not the way it works. But outside of your primary residence, assets worth $1 million more than your liabilities. So let's just go through some of the questions that surprise a lot of people when we talk about millionaire lifestyle. Who are the millionaires? What is their kind of choices do they make on a day-to-day basis about what they buy, what they own, what they do? As I mentioned, this can actually be accessed through our website, and you can have a full 21 question "Who Wants to Live Like a Millionaire" evaluation you can do on your own in the comfort of your own home. There is necessarily no wrong, right answer. As I mentioned, not everybody should or is in a position to believe or to try to be a millionaire, or even wants to. But the idea is we hold the status of a millionaire in a special place in the American psyche. We think of it as success. And some of the challenges with that include trying to live or believing that this is what a millionaire lifestyle is, and even though I work just as hard as a millionaire, because we see the musicians and the athletes and the actors, and we think that they're not working very hard, although behind the scenes they usually are. But we start thinking, well, I work just as hard, it's not fair, and so I should be able to live like they do, and we try to overspend and tend to go into debt and get caught in the debt cycle. So that's the definition of a millionaire we've gone through, and that's the why we're talking about it. A lot of people think of the lifestyle of a millionaire. They all think of the homes and the cars and the bling. And I'll even ask when I start my presentations with high schoolers, what do millionaires drive? And you can bet that the first question, first responses, all of them start or end, all the names of cars that millionaires drive, they think will end in an I. Bugatti, Maserati, Ferrari, and Lamborghini, and go on. And then they'll move to the luxury vehicles, the Rolls Royces and the Bentleys, and eventually get around to the Mercedes. And that's about where they stop, maybe BMW. We'll go through what the reality is. So, briefly, they are driving big SUVs or big, generally American cars, but very common vehicles include the Camry and the Honda Accord, not the Bugatti or the Maserati or the Lamborghini and so forth. And here's the thing, 70% of millionaires do not buy new cars. They're worth $1 million, but they don't go down and buy a brand new car at the local dealership. Maybe 30% of them do, but 70% never have. And they typically don't buy cars that are worth more in today's dollars, about $45,000, $50,000. There is only one luxury vehicle on the entire top 10, top 20 list of cars driven by millionaires, and that's a Mercedes. Otherwise, you're looking at the Accords, the Camrys, the Explorers, and other large sedans and SUVs. So it's not what people think. Well, who is driving those fancy cars? In some cases, they are very high income earners, and some might actually be millionaires. But in many cases, if you drive by somebody who is driving a brand new Lexus, chances are they are a high income earner who is living just like 60% of the rest of the population, paycheck to paycheck. That is a generalization, I recognize, but this whole presentation is a generalization. So the idea is, let's get out of the generalizations, let's get into reality. What kind of homes do they live in? We think of Beverly Hills. We think of Belvedere Island or Sausalito in Northern California, or the Hamptons in New York, and the massive sprawling villas. In reality, most millionaires are going to live in a very nice home, but it's not like they become millionaires and all of a sudden decide, hey, we're going to move to a mansion. No, they are in a home that they love, and they typically, on average, they've lived there for 20 years. Why do they stay so long? Because it's not about the home and the show. They have family or friends close by. They're involved in church groups and clubs and charities, and have great neighbors that they really enjoy hanging out with. So it's not about the home. That's one of the things that we try, the myth that we try to bust with the young people is, don't go looking for the big home, because you'll get into the big home and generally you may not even be able to afford it. What do they do? If you ask somebody in their teens or early 20s, if you had all the money in the world, what would you do? Most would talk about spending it. Oh, I'm going to spend my money. I'm going to go have fun. I'm going to go on these massive trips. I'm going to buy big fancy cars and big homes. It's about spending. The reality is most millionaires are not into the spending, except for time. I've heard millionaires on more than one occasion talk about why what they appreciate most about their financial independence. It's not what they can buy. It's the freedom of time that they've been able to have, so they can spend more time with family and friends. In fact, as a group, they're very social. They are not the snobby, stuck-up group that a lot of people think of when they think of millionaires, because we're thinking about the fame that goes with the fortune. Most millionaires are quite giving, and they've been that way since before they made their millions. I don't think I mentioned it. Most millionaires earn their own money. There's another myth. I was just listening to an audio book the other day of ranting and raving against the rich in this country about how it's unfair that everybody else has to live in almost financial slavery because the rich and their families stay rich. The reality is that, and it's not to say that doesn't exist. The reality is that only about 5 to 10% of millionaires have inherited their wealth. The vast majority of them earn their own money. What does that say, though, about their kids? It says that it's hard. Once you become wealthy, it's hard for your kids to stay wealthy because of the idea of spending and not being able to spend what you want. If you don't have an income as a second generation, you don't have income. Once the first generation millionaire is gone, you're not going to stay you're not going to keep your net worth very high. Okay, let's see the next one. Oh, so what? By the way, spending time with family and friends, by far top two activities that you'll find millionaires participating in regularly. Not just spending time with them, but events, activities with family. Hosting friends over is something that you'll see fairly often. And then food, yeah, they might enjoy a good meal now and then, but just as likely to find them at a fast food restaurant or at a more convenient sit-down place, quick and fast. Okay, as I mentioned, why it matters. So we want to break the myth so that we're not the desperation of a feeling that, hey, life is not fair, is not pushing us into wasting our money, like spending money on the lottery. This is the best thing I ever heard somebody say about millionaires and lotteries. They said, if lottery was really a good financial idea, a really chance of winning, wouldn't millionaires be paying other people to stand in line and buy tickets for them? It's a waste of time and a waste of money. People are going to argue, hey, but what about all the good things that it does for our schools? Great for the schools, bad for everybody else. The parents of the children are spending $30, $40, $50, $100 a week. That's several $100s a month, and then going to many might be turning to food banks halfway through the month. That's the reality we live in. And it's not to say that these are bad people, but that's what our society is pushing people to believe that they need to do. KUJ syndrome, keeping up with the Joneses. That is very common. And when you move into any new neighborhood, you might think, hey, we can now afford a nice home. You get into a nice home. It's not the home that's the expensive part. It's trying to keep up with all the neighbors. Well, all the neighbors go to this club, or all the neighbors drive newer cars, and it's embarrassing to have an old, ugly car in front of. Yeah, so keeping up with the Joneses syndrome. And then just generally finding unhealthy financial behaviors. All right, here we go. So what do you think the millionaire would say? Budgets are for the rich or for the poor? It is actually for both. Everybody should be on a budget. If somebody were to say, well, once I had enough money, I wouldn't have to worry about money. Wrong answer. The more money you get, actually, the more you tend to worry about it. That's one of the misconceptions out there. And here's the reality, and this is why we talked about the lottery. If you win the lottery, if you were bad with small amounts of money, how do you think you're going to handle large amounts of money? The reality is, if you want to handle your current income, once you manage that well, you can move on, and you will move on. If you're not managing money well now, you won't manage large amounts any better. For fun, what are you more likely to be? If you're a gamer, if you're a millionaire, are you going to be a gamer or a reader? This was one of the most common standout traits of millionaires. They love reading. If you see somebody with a book in their hand, a physician or a dentist or an attorney or accountant, or if you see a small business owner and they're always reading, very likely you'll see that they might belong to that circle of millionaires. Lifelong learners, passionate learners, so readers, audiobooks. In fact, if they're going on a long trip, they're not going to just be listening to, and they might, some of them might, but they won't just be listening to their favorite playlist of favorite songs. More likely to catch them listening to audiobooks, and that's on a subway or on a car, on a trip, on a commute, so forth. How do they feel about hard work? Love it, hate it. Because if you ask a teenager or somebody in their 20s, If you were a millionaire, what would you do? And the first thing they'd say is, I'd quit working. In fact, there's an entire movement, a massive movement across this country called the FIRE movement, financially independent, retire early, that is all about quitting work. I'm not saying it doesn't work for many of them, but the reality of most millionaires love working. They love what they do. They found something that they're passionate about, and many of them will work far beyond normal retirement age. Many of them work far more than the 40 hours a week that you'll find the rest of the population striving to minimize their work week to. They love working. At what age do they become millionaires? Typically, it's right around 55. It's not, most millionaires are not going to become millionaires when they're young. How do they how do they earn their money? Of course, it was through hard work, not winning the lottery. You mentioned that. Here's one, a weird one. It's kind of like that reading one. Do they count calories every day? Far more likely to count calories than somebody who is not a millionaire. And why is that? This one, it goes right along with one about brushing or flossing. Let me get to that. We talked about that. Here's this one about flossing 4 times or more a week. Yes, it's about over 60% of millionaires are flossing their teeth 4 more times a week versus less than 10% of non-millionaires. There is something about caring for our own physical health that is related also to our responsibility and the way we manage our lives generally. So I tell young people, I say, okay, you want to be a millionaire? You want to live like a millionaire? Go home and floss. There you go. You just started living like a millionaire. And when you're done flossing, then start watching how much you eat. Eat healthy and stay active. Just a couple more here. What kind of neighborhood you live in? And it's not an exclusive neighborhood. You'll have very high income earners living in exclusive neighborhoods, but most millionaires, as I mentioned, 20 years in the same home, nice homes, but not the top of most coveted neighborhoods in the area. Where do they buy their stores? I've been around tables with 6, 10 different millionaires at a time, and listen to them brag about where they got their clothes. Now, they're not dressing poorly. They're dressed decent, but they're not dressed to impress. That's not their purpose. But I don't put up thrift stores, but many of them will talk about, hey, they love going to thrift stores and finding good deals. So I know we're just about out of time here. I want you to understand that most millionaires believe that their success, the way they get success from success was because of belief in themselves, and not just listening to others or hearing about others. I want to get through some of these. You can see that they spend time at home with friends and family. Their home is not a brand new one, but an old one. And I mentioned the audio books. But this is one that this is an interesting one. They say that the trait, their most important trait, a key to their success was it honesty or intelligence? It was actually honesty. You think about for a small business owner, they're not going to have repeat customers if they are seen as cheats. And so you've got to be generally somebody that they want to work with. And the last one I'll just put up here. I know time is out, but who is it that they who's their financial advisor? Stockbroker is the most trusted one, or their accountant? It's their accountant. Many do not even have a stockbroker or use a stockbroker. They invest in themselves, they invest in their businesses, but they certainly want or look for help on how to manage their money on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis. So much of this information is based on what you'll find in some of these books, the Millionaire Next Door series by Stanley and Danko, The Difference by Gene Chatsky. In fact, there's a new book out by Dr. Stanley and his late Dr. Stanley and his daughter called The Next Millionaire Next Door, just that confirms even 25 years later that the information is still pretty darn accurate. So we're out of time. If anybody has any questions or comments, I am happy to address them. But here is the theory of change. The last thing, if you want to change the direction of your life, 1, picture your future. Where do you want to be? What do you want it to look like? 2, consider where you are now. Ask yourself the question, are you content with where you are now? Or do you want to make a change? If you don't have that desire to change, it's not going to change. And then 4, what are you doing to improve your chances of making a change and progressing to that future? What's it going to look like? 5, tell yourself, write it down, say it regularly. You're going to do something and what you're going to do to change. 6, what's the one step you can do today? Just one thing you can do today to put you on your path to the future you want. Flossing your teeth is a great step. All right, here you go. If you want to get a certificate of completion, go over to this link, bit.ly/MFL, that's Money Fit Live -million. And the passcode you'll need to enter your name and your email address to get your certificate. It's 719 next door. No dashes, no spaces, no capital letters. 719 next door. And you'll get that certificate within about, it's usually just in a few minutes, but it could take up to about a half hour. All right. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to having you join me again next week. And in the meantime, if there's anything we can answer for you, do touch base with us, moneyfit.org. We'll look forward to seeing you again soon.